I'll go ahead and kick things off as the last couple people are trickling in. So welcome and thank you for joining me. This is the second offering of our manager training for our new timekeeping software. The new timekeeping software is called Workforce Manager. So that's why you'll see that on the slide. And in this session, we're going to be going over quite a few different things. The format is going to be, in the first part, I'm going to go through a slide deck. So this slide deck is going to serve as your day one guide. I have some information on the software itself, why we're moving, information on process changes that we're going to adopt in the move to this new software. And then I also have some how-tos and some screenshots for actions that are going to help you to get started in the new software. Once we get through the deck, then I'm going to take any questions that anyone might have. So as I'm going through the presentation, please feel free to use the chat feature to ask any questions that you might have. So we'll get through the deck, we'll do an open Q&A, and then if there's any time left, I want to get into our test environment and take you through the examples I'm going to walk through in real time. The presentation has been lasting about an hour, but it really just depends on how many questions we get. So let's go ahead and dive in. I am going to mute everyone just to keep the noise level down. So please use that chat feature if you have any questions. Okay, and now I'm trapped in a duplicate screen nightmare. How do I get out? Hold, bear with me, guys. Let me pause real quick. There we go. Okay, I got it. So to start off, I wanted to introduce everyone to the team that's been working on this project. So my name is Krista Mrzinski, for anyone that I haven't met yet, and I'm one of the HR directors here at Easter Seals. My official title is HR Director Systems, and that just means I'm responsible for a couple of the different teams in the HR department. I'm responsible for the payroll, benefits, and information systems teams. Here you can see my contact info, there's my email. And next we have Jennifer Matson, who is our payroll and records manager. You've got her email. And then we've got Sandra Webster, who is our HRIS specialist, and her email. And I wanted to be sure and share this with all of you so you can put some faces to names so that you could have our emails to reach out with any questions you might have in this timed transition. And I will be sharing this deck and a recording of this presentation. So, please take any notes that you would like to, but you will get this deck. So don't feel like you need to, be scribbling notes frantically. So the first thing I want to talk about today is, what is Workforce Manager? So at Easter Seals, we have a team called Workforce Management, right? Even if you're not in community living, which is the group that Workforce Management supports, you're probably familiar with them. Community living is by far our largest program and probably makes up 93% of our workforce. So it's a very large portion of our population, right? So Workforce Management supports scheduling and many other aspects of the community living program. Our new timekeeping software is called Workforce Manager, and that is just a funny coincidence. So it's not named for that team. We didn't name the software. That just so happens to be the name of the software that we selected. So I know it might be a little bit confusing for people, as someone might reference workforce and maybe Workforce Manager, but the term Workforce Manager should refer to our timekeeping software. So, and you're going to be using it to manage your staff's time cards, review time off requests, pull reports to gain insights into what hours your staff are working and where they're working. And all of those features, you're doing all of that today, right? But you're doing that in our current software, which is actually called eTime, but it's totally fine that you wouldn't know what that's called. And that's kind of as intended because it lives within ADP, right? You just log into ADP, you can see the time features, and you're off and running. Workforce Manager will operate in the exact same way. It's going to live within ADP. So you don't need to know a separate URL. You won't have a separate username and password. It'll all be packaged up together. So now for the why. Why are we implementing a new timekeeping software? So the current software has been great. It has met our needs. It has done what we've asked of it. It is able to pay in the complicated way that we do. But if you're familiar with the app, the time screens in the app don't look anything like the time screens on a computer. So you really have to know two different softwares if you're going to use time features on your computer and use them on the app. One of the best features about Workforce Manager is it has embraced an improved user experience. And user experience refers to how you interact with the software. So the real life application of that is when you use Workforce Manager on your computer, and then when you use Workforce Manager in the app, it's going to look exactly the same. So you only have to learn one set of menus. You only have to learn one set of screens, because in the app is going to look just like on your computer. There's also just expanded capabilities, right? You know, it seems like apps and websites are updated constantly these days. So the fact that this is new software, there's just expanded reporting capabilities and additional features that we don't have in the current software. And one of the big improvements is this software's ability to automate administrative processes. So as the years have gone on and the agency has gotten more flexible and gotten more nimble and really specialized groups and delved into specialized pay and different pay plans and just trying to fit the needs of different programs, it's made our setup really complicated. And this new software can automate some of those administrative processes that are required to keep people or keep our groups unique. So that's something I'm really excited about and will help keep changes happening in real time. And then a very large component of while we are implementing a new software is for a scheduler. So you may or may not be aware, but community living and a number of jobs within autism services are going to be using an advanced scheduler part of this software. So the big benefit we're going to get is it all lives within the same system. Community living has a software at the moment, it's called Makeshift. And so moving to Workforce Manager is going to bring that all under one umbrella. We don't have to worry about connections. We don't have to worry about lag time. We don't have to worry about systems talking to each other. Everything lives under one house and is all integrated. So I think many people are very excited about that. And right now, like I said, it's just community living and some positions in autism services. And hopefully this will be a great success and we'll be able to expand that to additional programs at a later date. This next slide has some important dates on it. So it is June 1st today. So we are in the home stretch of things because June 5th is our very last day to clock in or out in the current timekeeping software. So if you work, the last shift that you work this week, the last time you clock out in this pay period, I highly recommend you take a moment to look over your time card. And if everything looks good, you go ahead and approve it because then you can be done. You won't even have to worry about getting back in to the old system next week to approve your time card, right? Because that takes us to our next date of June 6th. So on June 6th is our very first day punching in the new software, using the new time software. But that is also a time card approval day. So if you have not approved your time card by June 6th, you will have to use both systems that day, right? You'll kind of be toggling between. On June 6th, if you're an hourly employee, you'll be clocking in and out. Maybe you'll be putting in PTO requests, but you'll also need to approve your time card in the old software. And certainly as managers on this call, you will also be doing all of your manager time card approvals in the old software, right? So there will be a little bit of toggling back and forth. So as much time card management as you can do ahead of time will really benefit you because there is a certain amount of labor associated with bouncing back and forth between systems. So the last time you work this pay period, like I said, go ahead and approve your time card and go ahead and get in there and be reviewing your staff's time cards. If there are edits needed, if there are missed punches, take care of it so that you won't have a headache on your hands next week when you're trying to learn the new software. So once we get through the last manager approvals in the old software, the next milestone we'll have are the manager approvals in the new software, and that's going to be June 21st. So that gives you guys, well over 2 weeks to get acquainted with the system, to get comfortable with it. But I really, really can't stress enough how important it is to review your time cards before June 21st, right? This will be every person's very first time approving time cards in the new software. So I anticipate a lot of questions. I anticipate a lot of people needing support. So the more we can spread that out, the better it's going to be for everyone, because there's only so many people and resources that can support you. So please get in there, review the time cards before the 21st, and we will get through that as smoothly as possible. Here are some important notes. We do have a number of changes coming along with this implementation. So one big change that probably will impact a number of people on this call is that salaried staff can no longer edit their own time cards. So today, if I decide to take a day off, I can put that PTO on my own time card. I'm a salaried employee. I can put that PTO time on my own time card, and I adjust my own hours worked. When Workforce Manager comes, so on Monday, I will no longer be able to do that. I will have to submit PTO requests in Workforce Manager. And the reason we made that change is because of the scheduling software, right? So the scheduling software has to know what people's schedules are. So no one can have access to edit their own schedule any longer, right? Things have to be locked down in a way that they weren't before. So I want to be very clear about that. You're going to have to be cognizant of submitting your PTO requests timely in the system so that your manager can approve them and those hours can get on your time card. Another update we've got is that the time app features will now be separate. So you heard me talking about the new interface and the fact that the time screens on your computer will look just like the time screens in the app. And that is a huge win. It does require a second app. So the current app we have, which is called ADP Mobile Solutions, isn't going anywhere. It's not going away. You will still be able to get your pay stubs and change your address and update your direct deposit. You can still do all of that. You just cannot access any of the time features in the current app after Monday. If you want to continue to use time features, go for it. Absolutely. The new app is called ADP Workforce Manager. It's also known as My Work. So you should be able to search either one of those terms in any app store and find the new app. I think you do have to log in the very first time you open the new app, but it's your same ADP username and password. So no new username, no new password, just a separate app. All right, so we have a couple of changes to access with Workforce Manager. So in Workforce Manager, a lot of things are going to look familiar to you. Time cards basically look exactly the same. A lot of screens are going to look very, very similar. But the foundation of this new software is totally different from our current software. And this is most apparent in the access you will have in Workforce Manager. So today, if you are looking in the time system, you have access to all of your direct and indirect reports, right? In Workforce Manager, they don't have that relationship. It's not built off of so-and-so reports to so-and-so and so-and-so reports to so-and-so. In Workforce Manager, your access is based off of your team. And if you remember a couple of months ago, we made big changes to the department structure in ADP, right? We used to have one Community Living North group. We used to have one autism training department, and things got changed a lot to better represent true work groups, right? We have Community Living STL Central 1. We have Autism Southwest. We have Community Living Southwest Bolivar 1. We have a bunch of those groups now. And that was a domino that had to fall for Workforce Manager to implement. because your time access is based off of your team. So if I am a member of the Community Living St. Louis Central One team, and I am in a management position, so a supervisor, a manager, director, I am going to have access to all of the time cards tied to that team. And that is hugely different than what we have today. So it took me a minute to wrap my head around that, just because I'm very used to the direct and indirect reports setup. All right. I'm used to, if I'm a manager, I can see my supervisor's time cards and I can see my employees' time cards. But if I'm a supervisor, I can only see my employees' time cards. So this is much more expanded access. And there are big benefits to this, right? So if you have access to all of the time cards within your team, that means that we have coverage, we have support in managing time cards, because we all know that employees work across management teams in many departments, right? So this is going to help with coverage on vacations, or if managers are covering caseloads. So that's really going to cut down on the need to delegate anyone's time access or anything like that. It will mean that you can see many more staff in time. You know, if you're a supervisor and you have 10 staff, you're used to seeing 10 time cards. Well, when you log into Workforce Manager, you might see 90 to 120, depending on how many employees are on your team, how many employees are on South 1 or South 2 or North 3. So I'm going to show you how to make a hyperfund, a filter, so that you can see only your direct reports. But that, I just want to be very clear with everyone, the access is very different. You will still see everyone you can see today, but you will probably see more people. There are some groups where there's no change, right? If you're a director and you're the director of Central One, you already see everybody in Central One, because everybody in Central One either reports directly or indirectly to you. So it's just a little bit different depending on who you are and what your job is. So to wrap that up, I just want to reiterate to everybody that the time system is very sophisticated. So every single action that any person does is tracked and logged. So every punch, every edit, every transfer is logged in an audit trail, showing the user, there's a date and timestamp of the action, explains exactly what they did. So even though we have this expanded access, I don't want anyone to be concerned that there will be negative repercussions, right? I absolutely do not anticipate that people will be accessing time cards they shouldn't be, or making edits on time cards they shouldn't be editing. If that ever would arise, we absolutely need to address it, because that would be, potentially a corrective action, something like that. I mean, that's serious. You shouldn't be making any edits to time cards that aren't warranted. So I just wanted to make that clear. I really think it's going to be a benefit. I think it's a process change that better fits our business needs, but it's just different. So I wanted to make that clear with everyone. The next update we have, which I also think is an excellent improvement, has to do with our training hours. So if you've been with Easter Seals for a while, and especially all of you managers, you are probably very familiar with the fact that training hours are loaded to your hourly staff's time cards, right? You have to wait for the training hours to show up. The nice thing about Workforce Manager is staff can now clock in. Staff will have to clock in, because the training department, the payroll department are not loading hours anymore. That process just was not serving us. And we have the tools to enable staff to clock themselves in. So what we're going to be doing is, anytime a staff is in a training, they're in a training session on site, if they're doing online training, they are going to clock in. And we have a special work rule that they will select called training. So that's going to clearly mark those hours as training hours. And then when the training is done, they will just clock out. So people will now get trained for every single minute they put in training. It'll be very clear which hours were carved out for training and which hours were worked hours. And then the impact to you all is, when you're looking at time cards, you need to make sure your staff's training hours are on there, right? You know when your staff are in training. You know that so-and-so had to get off early from their shift on Tuesday because they were going into the South office for a CPR class. So when you're when you're reviewing time cards every other week, you just need to add this to your mental process. When you're looking at time cards, make sure your staff have their training in and out. Make sure they select their training work rule. The work rule is actually very important because we have a number of premiums, right? We have a weekend premium, we have specialized home premiums, different things like that. If staff do not select the training work rule, they would be paid for any premiums that would normally kick in. And they should not be, right? Training is training. You're getting paid your base wage for it. I mean, obviously, if you're in overtime, you would get paid overtime, no question there. But it's not eligible for the home premiums or the weekend shift, if anything like that. So when you're looking at time cards, make sure your staff clock in and out for training. If they didn't clock in, you will need to add the punches and make sure they have that training work rule. So I've been talking about the scheduling system too, right? There's this advanced scheduler component. On Monday, the time system launches, but the scheduling software doesn't launch for another 4 to 6 weeks. They are going to go live in July. So once that happens, the workforce management team is actually going to take over scheduling of training shifts for all of the staff that they schedule. So they are going to be putting training hours on your staff's schedules. So once that happens, the staff will only need to clock in because the training will automatically be assigned. So that is a future state though. I just want to make that very clear. So that will happen once the scheduling software is live. So until that point in time, staff absolutely have to be choosing that training work rule. So just another component of needing to validate the time cards and make sure their time is right. And then down here at the bottom, I just reiterated, training and payroll teams will no longer be loading any hours associated with training. If you ever have questions about training hours or how long maybe a staff should have been clocked in or anything like that, you can always reach out to the training department, and I am sure they would be happy to help you validate that information. Okay, so now that we are through the process updates, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I have a number of slides, and I'm going to show you a number of actions in the new software. This screen here should look very familiar to everybody, right? So this is what we see in ADP today. And I just wanted to show this so that you can see that not everything is changing. You're still going to use the My Team menu. The time and attendance link is going to go away. I went ahead and I crossed through that in red, and then I highlighted our new link. So you are going to select Workforce Management, and then you'll select Dashboard whenever you want to complete any time functions. And today, if you were going to do anything in the time system, it's all in that one window, right? With Workforce Management, it actually opens up a new tab, which I think is just an excellent improvement. Click that link, you get a whole new tab, a whole new screen, and this is your homepage. Today, the time features are really chopped up, right? You have to click all different links. It refreshes your screen. In the new system, it's a new tab, a new screen, so you can actually be looking at your staff's time cards and also be over in the rest of ADP at the same time, right? You can be looking at staff's job info or doing whatever you're going to do, and it's not going to take you away from where you were in reviewing time cards or reviewing PTO requests. So I think that's a really excellent improvement. And on this home screen, you'll notice it just looks new. We don't have anything that looks like this, right? It's set up with these tiles. And on these tiles represent different features in the system. So there's a manage time cards tile, and there's a time off tile, and there's a my time card tile and a schedule tile. If you want to open any of these tiles, you can click on the blue arrows, or some of them have links at the bottom, all time cards link or time off request link. And then if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that there are 3 blue lines and a blue square. That's also a menu. So you can use this homepage to get to most of the features in the system, but you can also use that menu to open up different screens. So it just represents different ways of getting to the same places. And then as you navigate through the system, anytime you want to get back to this homepage, you'll just click that little home button and it'll take you right back here, back to the tiles, and then you can navigate anywhere you want to go. All right, so the thing that you all are probably doing most often in time is looking at your staff's time cards, right? So if you wanted to do that and you're on the Workforce Manager homepage, you're going to look for the Manage Time Cards tile. So once you find that tile, you can either click the blue All Time Cards link, click the little blue arrow, and that is going to take you to a screen showing all the time cards for everyone in your team. Because remember, it's not just about the staff who report to you. We all are now going to have access to the time cards within our team, within our department. So it's like I talked about before, it's going to be a much larger group than most of you are used to. So if you look at the screenshot down at the bottom of the page, up in the upper right-hand corner, you see it says 1 of 90. That's going to be a pretty typical amount of time cards. So when these time cards open, you can filter them down, right? If you just click on the drop-down menu, that represents someone's name. That's my test account. So you might see, Smith, Sarah. If you click on that drop-down, you can search for the name of any person in your group, right? If you want to look up one time card at a time. I'll also show you a screen called Employee Summary, where it doesn't open the time card automatically, but it shows you a list of all of the names of everyone in your work group. And I'll show you that you can filter it in a couple of different ways. You can search for people's names. You can search for your name as the manager. But the great thing about both of these screens, the Manage Time Card screen and the Employee Summary screen, is you can apply the hyperfund I'm going to teach you all how to create. So when you are reviewing time cards, you'll notice that the time cards themselves pretty much look identical to our current system. The biggest update and the biggest change by far is the way our information is organized. So we've already talked about one big organizational change, and that is the system being based on teams and not being based on a hierarchy relationship. Another big change is what's called business structure. So we had to change the access within time to accommodate the scheduling software. We also had to change over to a business structure to accommodate the scheduling software. So the business structure is what tells the scheduling software what jobs we have and where people should work. It is what enables the scheduler to schedule people, to know how many open shifts we have and where we need to find coverage. So there are a bunch of different pieces within the business structure, but what matters to all of you and what matters most to me is the location. So you really can think of the business structure as another name for location. So if you want to look at the first screenshot that I have here, this is kind of like a summary. I just wanted to show you this primary location here. So it says primary location, and there's a bunch of information. The first thing you'll see is the team, right? So I think we're all starting to get familiar with the new teams. You can see that this team associated with this location is Central 1, and then the location is 2005. The great thing about this business structure is that these numbers are already synced up together. You don't have to know that location 2005 is on the Central 1 team, because you're just going to search for the location and it's going to put all the other information in there for you. So if you look at the next screenshot, this is what the actual transfer task looks like. So if you are going to open up a staff's time card and you are going to apply a transfer, this is what you're going to see. And this is automatically populated. So this is a transfer screen for someone whose primary work location is 2005. But I'm saying I don't want the shift to hit 2005. I want it to hit some other location, right? So on this next screen, I'm going to show you how to do that. If you look at this first screenshot, you'll see that I highlighted the number 2000. So I cleared out that field location because it used to say 2005, right? I cleared it out, I typed in 2000. And then if you look at the bottom of that screenshot, you'll see that it clearly pulled up a business structure for 2000, location 2000, which is Allenson. So it pulled up exactly what I asked it to. I'm not getting a whole bunch of options. And all I had to do was type in that field. So today in ADP, if you're doing a transfer, most of the time you're having to scroll through a really big, long list. So the fact that you can just search in here is a huge improvement. So the screen looks complicated, but I really feel that once you guys get in there and you complete a transfer, it will feel natural to you. So all you need to be worried about is what you need to change. So if the only thing that you need to change is the location, then all you have to worry about is the business structure, right? Because with Workforce Manager, your location code lives within the business structure. So in this example, I've changed the location to 2000. And once you accept that, so, I selected the 2000, I would have clicked the button that says okay or apply, whatever the button says. And then it's going to give me the option to apply any other codes. So depending on the work that you do, depending on the work that your staff do, you may or may not be familiar with all of the other codes you can change for time, for shifts. So we have location, which I think is definitely the most common, but we also have what are called work rules, which change your pay data. And then we also have we also have activity funder and task codes. So the work rules have not had a name change. If you look in this middle screenshot, you have an option to add work rule. But then your second option here is add labor category. And labor category is definitely another new term. Labor category is just where the activity funder and task codes live. So within the one transfer, you can complete all of the actions. You can change location, which is now known as business structure. You can change work rules, activity funder, and task. And then I do want to shout out for anyone on this call who is not familiar with doing transfers. What that would tell me is that you're not required to do them, right? So if in your job as a manager, if you regularly only do transfers to locations and work roles, then that's what you should focus on. But if you're in a different program and you normally are making changes to activity and funder codes, clue into that. I just want to make it clear to everyone that none of this really is a change. You still only need to make edits to what you need to make edits to. And if your program does not have a bunch of transfers, you still won't have a bunch of transfers. So it's not a process change. It's just the tool is going to be organized in a little bit of a different way. So if you look at this screenshot on the far right, this is just a summary. So for this example, I changed everything I could change. I wanted a location change, so I updated the business structure. I applied the training work rule, which is going to be critical for any training shifts, right, that hourly staff work, whether that's in person or online. And then I also updated their activity funder and task code. And I did that all in one feature, and it organizes the changes really nicely. You can verify that everything got updated the way you wanted it to. So at this point, I would just click apply, and then the transfer codes will appear on the time card in just the same way you're used to. It'll be in the middle of the in and out punch. So that takes us to a salary time card. And for the most part, the salary time card looks the same. If you're a salaried employee or you have salaried employees, you've probably looked at this quite a bit. One thing I do want to point out, and it will be consistent on all of the screens within Workforce Manager, is that the time card, reporting, everything is going to start on Monday. So you all should know that our pay periods run from Monday to Sunday, right? But our current time system, the screens display Sunday to Saturday. And that's because our pay periods used to be Sunday to Saturday. So this is a change. I think it will definitely take some getting used to, but all of the displays will be Monday to Sunday. So please keep that in mind when you are, requesting time off or when you are adding shifts to a time card. I know that it will take some getting used to for me that the first line on a time card is no longer Sunday. I'm just so used to that. So keep that in mind. Make sure you really are checking dates when you're looking at things. The other big change on this time card is the fact that you can only see 1 week at a time. So if you're looking at the time card, it starts on Monday, May 23rd, and then it ends on Sunday, May 29th. And there's no second week, right? If you look on the far right, I've circled where it says week and where it says time frame. So it's clear that I have 40 hours for the week and 80 hours for the time frame, but where's my second week? If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that I've made a circle around some arrows. If you were to click that next arrow, you're going to see the next week. And I will say this is the only feature in Workforce Manager that I have not been excited about. I would like to see both weeks at once. I can't get an answer on why we can't, but believe me, I've asked. You can only see 1 week at a time on salary time cards. So it'll just be a little bit of an update we all need to get used to. So please, 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 when you're approving your own time card, when you're approving your staff time cards, make sure that you are looking at both weeks. And just really get it solid in your mind. Each week only needs 40 hours. You don't need to be coming to this 1 week of the time card and trying to put 40 more hours on it, right? Because it's just going to be on the next week. When you go to approve the time card, as long as you have the whole pay period selected, that's what's in that very upper right-hand corner where I selected, or where I highlighted current pay period. As long as the right pay period is selected, you just have to click approve. You don't need to toggle between the weeks and approve both weeks. Okay. Oh, my slides. Okay, my slide got a little bit out of order. This is just another slide about the business structure. So one other piece of the business structure is the job. And we talked about that a little bit, right? There are certain jobs that are being scheduled. There's community living DSP, and then within autism is ABA and the CSI position. So the business structure also includes the job. And because we aren't scheduling a ton of jobs, it doesn't really come into play. Every single location has a default job, a work job. And all that really means is default. That's just the term they use. It really just stands for default. And if you look at the screenshot on the far right, you can see that field for location that we referenced before, where it has 2005 and the location name is Autumn Creek. And below it is a field for job. So I think other companies where maybe they budget to certain jobs, you could change that quite a lot. You could be transferring people in between different jobs for different budget lines. That's just not the way that we budget. So focus your attention on the location code. And I really don't think you should worry too much about that job field. It's like everything else we've talked about. Worry about the things you need to change. And at this point, you don't need to worry about job. So if you're doing a business structure change, think about it as a location change. All right, so here I have some screenshots explaining how to set up a hyperfind. So I think this will be out of the comfort zone for a number of you. It's just not something that you've done before. This is definitely one of the things I want to be able to show you in the live environment. So when you are opening up the time screens, right, you're automatically going to see all the staff on your team. That's what I've been talking about. Maybe it's going to be 90, maybe it'll be 120. It all depends on how many staff are in your department. We are going to set up hyperfinds to filter that down to a more manageable level. In the center of the screen, I have a screenshot of a little icon. That icon means hyperfind. And a hyperfind is just a filter. So it's gonna, if you turn that on, it's only gonna show you the information that fits into the criteria you specify. So we're gonna select that icon. We'll follow the prompts and we're gonna select new hyperfind. And I would recommend you call it something like direct reports only. And then if you look at this bottom screenshot, we will click a button that says add conditions. And then from there, what we're gonna tell it is only include people who report to me. You're going to look for your own name. So you're going to select reports to, find your name in that list, click add, and then click apply. And then that will create a filter, AKA a hyperfind, so that you can see only your direct reports. So you might go from seeing 120 time cards to you flip on that filter and maybe you'll see 5 if you only have 5 people that report to you. So again, don't let this stress you out. You will get these slides and then I'm going to show you in real time exactly how to do this. You'll see it goes pretty quick. Okay, next thing we have is all about time off requests. So I mentioned earlier that time off requests have gotten a lot more important. They have definitely moved up the food chain in importance insofar as getting them in the system. So when your employees submit time off request, you will get a notification. You'll get an email and you'll also get a notification in the time system itself. So if you look at the first screenshot I have, there's a little bell up in the very upper right-hand corner of the Workforce Manager screen. So the number on the bell is going to represent the number of open notifications that you have. So if you click on that bell, or if you open the My Notifications tile on the home page, it's going to open what's called the Control Center. And this is the bottom screenshot I have gives you a good idea of what's in the Control Center. It allows you to see notifications coming from your employees. updates on requests that you made, right? Because we're all going to be putting in PTO requests as well. And you can click on any of those items and it will filter down the messages for you, which I think is a good improvement. So once we get into the control center, you'll see that you can approve a PTO request, you can edit it, you can reject it. One thing I definitely want to touch on is time off requests should be reviewed and addressed as soon as possible after they're submitted, right? It's up to you to approve, edit, reject the time request so that your employees' time cards are accurate. Because if you don't approve the request, the PTO is not on their time card, or the time off request wouldn't pass to the scheduling software. And I do believe that the workforce management team, for those of you that work in community living, the workforce management team is heavily involved in the time off request process. So I believe they probably will touch on that quite a bit when they do their trainings toward the end of the month. But I just want to make that clear to everyone. When you get these notifications, please address them right away. I know a lot of people seem to wait to review their time cards or perform any actions in time until time card approval day. And you're really not doing yourself any favors on that. You know, everyone is trying to get in their time cards at the same time. And if everyone needs help, you know, there's only so many resources to go around. So highly, highly recommend that as soon as you get the notification, you take care of that request right away. And anytime you're in time, I highly recommend reviewing all of your time cards too. Just a quick glance to make sure there's no missed punches. You don't see that a staff forgot maybe the training work rule, something like that. Something I'll touch on, but I went into a lot of detail in the employee session, is that salaried staff time off requests must start at 9 a.m. And that is because your salaried pay schedule starts at 9 a.m. The time system could not care less when a salaried employee works, right? Because you could work 65 hours a week and you're still only getting paid for 40, right? You are a salaried employee, you have an annual salary that's broken up into 26 pay periods a year. But in order to pay you, we have to have some sort of schedule on the time card to generate those hours. So every single salaried employee has a schedule that starts at 9 a.m. So if your employees or you were to submit a time off request that started at 7 a.m. and they're a salaried employee, it is going to make a mess of their time card because the PTO request is going to start at 7, and let's say they request 8 hours of PTO. So the system is going to give them, if you approve it, PTO from 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. Well, their salary pay schedule runs from 9 to 5. So they're going to have PTO from 7 to 3, and then they're also going to have hours worked from 3 to 5. And you don't want that because that's going to get them 10 hours a day on their time card. So please be cognizant, pay attention to that. And when you're reviewing time cards, make sure you always look at the weekly and pay period totals, because a salaried employee should never have any more or any less than 40 hours a week and 80 hours of pay period. All right, so this is a screenshot of what it looks like to approve or review a PTO request. You can see over on the far left, all of the different categories of notifications, and I have employee requests selected. And you can see I have a couple of different requests that were in here, and I've just selected this one from Sandra. And over on the left-hand side, I can see all kinds of details about the request. I could open up all of these little menus that are collapsed. And then up in the upper right-hand corner, I have a bunch of action buttons. I can approve the request as is if everything looks good. I can refuse it if for some reason I can't accept this, or I can edit it. You can change the start time. You can change the duration. And then as soon as you approve this, reject it, whatever, your employee will also get a notification, and then their schedule will update in real time. All right, so that takes us through the slides. I'm going to go ahead and open the chat to see what questions we've got. Okay, someone says that they can't hear anything. I hope that everyone has had audio this time. You guys have been hearing me, right? Yeah, okay. So for anyone who wasn't able to hear, if you couldn't get the audio figured out, I'm really sorry about that. This is being recorded, and it will be, the link to it will be emailed out. So if you weren't able to hear part of the presentation, you should be able to catch up. Someone asks, I have staff on PTO this week. How do they access the old software to approve their time cards next week? So everyone will still have access to the old time software on Monday, June 6th, because employee time card sign-offs are due the Monday following a pay period, right? So June 6th is the first day of a pay period, and it's also time card approval day. So everyone will have access on Monday of next week. Do managers still have access to make corrections to the transfer codes? Yes. If your employee is, clocking in and they choose the wrong transfer codes when you're reviewing time cards, you absolutely can change that. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how things are going to interact with the schedules. I would think the workforce management team is going to go into more detail about that when they do their scheduling training. So if you're talking about the interaction with schedules, I just really can't speak to that level of detail. All right, someone asks, approved time cards on old software until June 5th. Yes, you will be approving the pay period we're in right now in the old software, right? All of the time that was worked in the current pay period only exists in the old software. When we move over, it's fresh, it's new. There is no time data, there's no punches, there's no pull me a report of the hours that were worked in 2021, because they don't exist. I'm going to have a historical database that's really for audit purposes only. But we're starting over, we're fresh. So I can't remember if I said this, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but if you have any PTO requests that you did enter into ADP that are starting June 6th or later in the year, you will have to log them in Workforce Manager. PTO requests are not going to be pulled over. Like I said, we're starting fresh, it's new, the systems, they're just different. They're not compatible in that way. So if you have PTO requests in ADP today, you will need to enter them again in Workforce Manager. All right, next question. As a supervisor, will this allow me to assist float staff when float staff make changes to their time card? As long as the float staff has the same department as you. So this really is all timed together with why it is so important to get workflow submitted timely to make sure that your staff have all of the right coding in ADP. It's extremely important that everyone has the right job titles, that they have the right department, that they have the right work location, because all of that works behind the scenes. So yes, if you have a floater, and let's say you're a supervisor on the North 3 team, as long as that floater has North 3 as their department, you will absolutely be able to see their time card. All right, next question. What about working admin time at home? I'm not really sure what you're asking about. If you're asking about being a program supervisor who is completing paperwork or doing administrative tasks, not in a client home, you would just clock in the same way you always have. So if you clock in the current system today with a specific location code, you would continue to do that. If there's another element that you're asking about that I'm just not picking up on, please feel free to email me and we can definitely talk about it in more detail. Okay, I think that's the end of the chat. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put them through. But I did just realize I forgot to mention one change. I went over this in a lot of detail in the employee training, but an update that's coming with the scheduling software is the need for salaried community living managers to clock in for DSP shifts. So salaried community living managers are going to have a hybrid time card. It's going to look like an hourly time card, but they're going to have their same salary schedule. And the purpose of that is just to accommodate the scheduling software. So you're not going to be clocking in today, but you will need to clock in for DSP shifts when the scheduler goes live. So in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and definitely look for more information about that from the workforce management team. All right, so I didn't get anything else in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and pause my screen share and get logged into the test environment. Always seems to run slowest when I'm trying to show people. Come on. Here we go. All right, so once this loads, you all should be seeing ADP. It's going to look a little bit different. It's got a purple background instead of the orange, and that just makes it clear that it's a test environment. All right, so this is what we all see when we log into ADP, right? So to access Workforce Management, I've got my Team menu, and this is the new link. This is Workforce Management. You select Dashboard, and then it opens this new tab. So this is that home screen I had just showed you, right? These are our tiles. This is our menu. It's our home button and our little notification bell that takes us to the control center. So first thing I want to show you guys is how to get into time cards. So we've got this manage time cards tile. So if I click this blue arrow, it's going to take me to a screen that's going to show all of the time cards in my department. And it automatically opens a time card. So that's just how it works. If you select manage time cards, you are getting right into the time cards. And this is an hourly time card. Looks familiar, right? And here is that selection showing 91 employees. So if I want to see other staff, I can click through, but I just be clicking, 90 times. Otherwise, I can click this drop down and search for people. If there was somebody named Smith, I'd pull them up. Your other option is to use that hyperfind I was talking about. So I already have made a hyperfind, this My Direct Reports only, but we're just we'll make another one. We'll make My Direct Reports only 2. So I click that new hyperfind. I'm going to name this. And then your next step is just click add conditions. I'm looking for reports to, and then I need to find my name. So this is the test account that I'm in. I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to click add. And I'm verifying, okay, it moved that condition down. So what I've told it to do is only include people that report to me, that report to ESMW test account. I click apply. I click save. And now it exists. So you can see that now up here it says My Direct Reports only 2. And you can see that there's only one time card now because this account only has 1 employee. So that is the benefit of using this hyperfind. I was looking at 90 time cards before, and now I'm only looking at 1. And I only need to approve the 1 time card. So it just removes a lot of clutter. And you can always use the hyperfinds anytime you see this icon. You click this, you're going to see a few hyperfinds available to you, but you can always look for that My Direct Reports only. And if you start feeling savvy and you want to make other hyperfinds, you can. Anything with a star, that's your own personal stuff. And unless you're a practitioner, you can only make hyperfinds that you can see. So you can get in there, you can play around. There may be some different ways that you want to set up filters. I also want to show you the employee summary screen. So like I said, this was managed time cards. This takes you straight into time cards. You can't see anything else. If you come over here to this menu, you can select employee summary. And it basically is just going to give you a list of the names of all of the employees within your department. So this is going to come in handy, I think, if you're managing time cards across locations. Right? Maybe you had some employees who don't work directly for you that filled in at your location. So you can use the check marks, these check boxes, if you want to look at a couple of time cards. So if you check the boxes, you can click where it says here, open selected, and it's going to open only those time cards. It just makes it a lot easier to manage the data. So I wanted to show that to you guys. Oh, you know what? I should show you a transfer too while we're in here. So let me get back to my managed time cards. All right, so we'll go ahead and throw in a punch here. If I want to apply the transfer, it looks exactly the same, right? I clicked in the transfer cell, I click search, and then it's going to open the slider menu on the right over here. And this looks just like the screenshot. I've got my business structure link, my work rule link, and my labor category link. If I click business structure, it automatically pulls up this employee's primary work location. So this test account, I've assigned it to work at location 2005 Autumn Creek. But I'm saying that this shift is not being worked at Autumn Creek. I want it to be worked somewhere else. So all I do is click this X, and then I type in the location number for wherever they did work. I click my magnifying glass and it pulls